And here's a quote from this article. Al D'Amato was paid in 2014 $180,000 by one marijuana company, Ideal 420 Technologies, to pen an op-ed reversing his position on it, that is, legalizing medical cannabis. And now, long-term client, North Shore Long Island Jewish Healthcare Systems, which was paid up to $180,000 a year, says it will apply to become one of the state's 5 selected dispensaries for grass. That's quoted from Wayne Barrett. This doesn't mean that paying Al D'Amato or his lobbying firm to one of the state's 5 to advocate for cannabis played a role in which company is granted a license, but it does indicate that potential is there to funnel money through a lobbying firm and other methods into the pockets of the decision makers. Having limited numbers of licenses in a lucrative industry is the starting point for corruption. One of the leading forces opposing cannabis legalization is the opioid industry. Now, this has been quoted numerous times at this hearing, but I'll repeat it again. Natural News, April 25th, 2017, reported on a study in the Journal of American Medical Association, which reveals that legal cannabis states have a 25% lower rate of opioid mortality. The study implies that cannabis used to treat pain reduces the consumption of opioids. The article goes on to dispute the notion that cannabis is the gateway drug, which means the gateway to addictive and more dangerous drugs. Governor Cuomo, when signing the CCA, actually repeated the gateway theory as if it were a fact. This is why, theoretically, the CCA, a law brokered by Cuomo, only allows pharmaceuticalized cannabis oils to be used in New York, as I said, i.e. smoking cannabis is not allowed. The gateway theory is the excuse Governor Cuomo and other anti-cannabis politicians use to try and prevent the end of prohibition. Yet, Governor Cuomo's 2014 campaign received $25,000 from Purdue Pharma, manufacturers of OxyContin, one of the highest selling pharmaceutical opioids, from their executive, John Sackler. By the way, Sackler lives in Connecticut, so why is he donating money to Cuomo? Okay. The Natural News article states pharmaceuticals, the real gateway drug to killing Americans, including New Yorkers. I'm not sure if Purdue Pharma's money is influencing Governor Cuomo in an effort to make legalizing cannabis a more difficult process than it has to be, but at the very least, taking Purdue Pharma money while opposing cannabis legalization is hypocritical. Pharmaceutical companies should not be allowed to participate in the cannabis industry. There are also reports that large multinational companies want to make genetically modified pot, GMO pot. Do we want to take the risk in which the lust for profits might result in some sort of modified pot to be highly addictive? No. Do we want to smoke pot that is sprayed with pesticides? Do we want to allow cannabis growers to manipulate THC levels in their packs of joints in the same way that tobacco companies manipulate nicotine to make cigarettes more addictive? The answer to all of these questions is no. Yet we, the Greens, and I, a Green, love pot and want it to be legal. So what is the solution? Homegrown must be the centerpiece of the end of prohibition if we are to ensure that the most people get the benefits of cannabis. Post-prohibition in New York must encourage the people who want to use cannabis for personal use to grow it themselves. The current Marijuana Regulation Taxation Act, MRTA, is still in the state Senate's committee, allows for only 6 plants. That's not enough. The Green Party of New York calls for homegrown, no taxation, 99 plants or less. The GPN is also for commercial cannabis, but based on the restrictions and allowance I'm going to recite. Safety regulations Greens would like to see for pot. No GMO cannabis, no pesticides, no THC manipulations, no additives. Businesses to be excluded from the new legal cannabis industry. No alcohol producers, no pharmaceutical companies, no tobacco companies, no multinational companies. Homegrown, not for trade or sale. No taxation of homegrown. Regulations of homegrown, C1, 2, or 3, which is no GMO, no additives, no THC manipulation, etc. 11, 99 plants or less. Commercial marijuana. Licensing schemes should make sure that thousands of small businesses compete on a fair playing field. A, the industry must be divided into 4 categories as listed in the current MRTA: production, distribution, wholesale, and retail. A business can only have 1 license in one of the categories. No business can have any fiduciary relationships or corporate ties with a business in another category. B, women should be given priorities in licensing licenses in the licensing schemes. C, people in police precincts hit hardest by drug war arrests should be given priorities in any licensing schemes. D, there should be hundreds of licenses in each category. And I will add, these licenses should be, relatively cheap, not expensive, certainly not $10,000. Okay, E, the exception to the rule of a business only able to participate in one category should be one on-premise pot smoking establishment, i.e. the Dutch coffee house model, who will be allowed to grow their own pot for sale on their own premises with the same regulation: no GMO, no pesticides, no THC manipulations. Products from cannabis should not be taxed any more than the same products made from other materials. In other words, we don't want them to make, like, say you're going to make paper products out of hemp. Okay. We don't want to be taxed more than regular paper as a way of protecting the tree paper industry. Tax products made from cannabis at lower rates than the same products made with other materials. In other words, you can make clothing out of hemp, you can make paper, you can make gasoline. I researched this. All of these are taxed at about 4%, and cannabis should not be taxed higher. It should actually be taxed lower to stimulate the new industry. Other points, and I'm almost finished. Expunge the criminal records of people with prior nonviolent marijuana convictions. Some Greens are also calling for reparations. And on a personal note, I'd like to speak about reparations. And I got that inspired by my co-panelist, Dana Beal. Reparations should come out of the police union budget, at least 1 or 5%, and prison guards union budget, because they're all lobbying it. It should come out of a lot of the politicians' houses, or their salaries, who put these laws. And this is based on the South African model for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We're also advocating for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, where all the people who created and prosecute the drug war get to be confronted by the people who suffered most from it, not only the people arrested, but their families. Okay, and we can go on about that later. But there's a real thing, if you're part of the drug or pharmaceutical companies who are lobbying against cannabis, they have to pay reparations. I don't think the state should pay the reparations. I think all the people who lobbied and got these bills passed and benefit from it, even some of the prosecutors. Okay? If you're a member of LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, you join real quick, you will be immune from the reparations. Okay. So, eliminate legal obstructions to the agricultural cultivation and processing of hemp for its many useful forms, especially where hemp use might mitigate deforestation, bring greater ecological stability. It's known that hemp also restores aquifers, and that's critical in New York because we found there's 7 carcinogens in New York City's water system, and that's because they're not protecting the water of the aquifers upstate. So hemp could be part of restoring that. And we're green, so we care about social justice and we care about the environment, and they're interlinked. You cannot separate either one. And with that, I will pass the baton on to my esteemed colleague and mentor, Dana Beal.
Okay, Dana, just one more modification to our modification of the schedule. If possible, Dana, before you testify, another witness has to leave momentarily to catch a flight. So if he could testify.
Yeah, sure.
Next, that would
Yeah,
be great.
yeah,
And
right-
that's
right here.
Rebecca Town.
Thank you. And I very much apologize for the disruption, and I
No, no, no.
appreciate being called out of order.
I won't have to repeat the 25%.